show where we concentrate Switzerland's expertise dedicated to wealth management. Impact investing is at the heart of a series of thematic videos broadcasted on Sphere TV. We have chosen companies that, in addition to being profitable, have a positive environmental and social impact. ESG, impact investing, is a key topic when it comes to healthcare. Of course, you might say, but is it just stating the obvious, or do we have to dig a bit deeper? Here with me to discuss this topic is Pascal Mischler, CEO of Kieger. He's convinced that healthcare is a sweet spot for ESG. Welcome, Pascal.
Thank you, and welcome, and thank you to have me here.
So, ESG more than a buzzword.
Yes, if you think that every day about 16,000 children die before their 5th birthday, I think this is not a buzzword, right? Yes, it might be a buzzword for people simply because ESG is about values. So we might actually like or have values, both of us, that might be different. And so that's why we might see from each other's perspective, right? If, for example, water usage is very key for me, but for you it would be basically gender diversity, you might think that it's a buzzword from your side because we don't have the same values. But we don't think it's a buzzword. It's about really thinking about life. It's about impact on the planet. And it's about how to do things and to make the world better. What is important, really, is that you think that not only ESG is happening or was happening already there, but it's in everyday's life. You think about governments, right? They are under pressure with their people to make ESG happening and to make a better world for their planet. You think about companies that are outperforming their peers that are non-ESG are clearly already the winners. And when you think about investment as well, it's not about ticking the box exercise to assess or to be in trend, right? It's about trying to find the winners of the future.
I see your conviction, but if you look at ESG, the three little words, or you have the E, you have the S, the G, what do you focus on then when it comes to your investments?
Yeah, I think we are professional investors, so from our side, all three are important. That's very clear. From the investor side, it's depending the type of investor, right? Professional or institutional investors will try to focus on the three. Retail investors will maybe focus more on environmental because they're more affected from what they see on TV, like fires and etc. So that's how we differ. For us, it's very important that we focus on all three. Now, government has been very clear. Over the years, we've been always focusing, right? We've been managing money since more than 20 years. So governance has been always key of every investment process. When we talk about the environmental side, that's easier to assess because there is a lot of data in databases that you can extract for. Social, it's where it's a little bit more difficult. You need to try to verify with each company how they approach this, and that's where we have more work to do in general in the financial industry, and that's why we spend a lot of time talking to the companies.
So, but then on top you have the healthcare topic. So you have ESG, difficult topic as you're managing everything, but you have healthcare. And why do you want to be more difficult? Or why do you combine healthcare with ESG?
Yeah, well, we thought from the initial point of view, right? Our DNA is into healthcare, so that's really a sweet spot already for us. But if you think so, healthcare is actually impact. The sector is impact. It's about helping people to have a better life, to be healthier. So the starting point is already very interesting. Now, the other part that are interesting on healthcare is that really healthcare is one of the most regulated sector in the economy, right? In finance versus finance. I'm sorry, I need.
No, go ahead. Yeah, healthcare.
So healthcare is one of the most regulated sector alongside, for example, finance. So that's really something that allows us to already, from a pure sector part, having an advantage versus other sectors. The other part that is interesting is that healthcare and the company in healthcare are the ones that are spending the most money in research and development. That leads to actually better impacts and better innovations than a lot of other sectors. And the last part, what is important, is that healthcare is a big enough sector that provides enough investment opportunities for investors to benefit from them and choose the right companies.
But if you look at, let's say, retail investors, what advice would you give them when it comes to the healthcare sector? What do we have to be aware when it comes to healthcare and ESG?
Yeah, it's very simple. They need, in terms of investment, they really need to assess the investment process. They need to ask for transparency in terms of not only data, but the process that leads to the end investment. That's very key. And from a company perspective, what they need to watch out is really look at the past, right? Look at companies, how they behave in the past. Big companies that had several times some issues in their past, it might be hard for them to switch their business model. So that will be very key, right? Like, that's something that I would advise people to do. And really look also the companies that they can give you advice. What type of knowledge do they have? Did they work into that sector before? Were they able to actually provide insights and understand insights of that sector? That's where I would really have investors to try to focus on.
We talked about it before, but measuring impact, measuring really social impact, especially, how do you cope with that? I mean, it's quite difficult, even measuring the environmental impact.
Yes.
You have so many differences in regulations and also in terminus. You don't even know what environmental is. In general, there's no terminus technicus. So how do you measure that?
That's a very good question. It's very difficult, right? Because a lot of social data or social reporting are not yet existing from the companies as a whole. So from us, what is important is two things. First, we have a very thorough approach and process that basically leads to the theory of change that is a theory of change that is a known theory in the impact world. So in a nutshell, it's making sure that you understand the idea of what the company is trying to achieve, what is the company output, but most important is how can you measure that impact. And if you start with that and focusing on that, you automatically will actually select the companies that are really linked to this. And this is our focus. And this is where we have to talk to the companies to make sure that they are truly aligned to their outputs, right?
So it's measuring the change in terms of time. So you need some also time as a factor which measures the changes.
Yes, of course, yes.
And you know, we talked about it as well. The regulation, you have finance area is highly regulated. You have the healthcare area, but ESG as such, there's still some, I would say, blurry situations there. It's not comparable. Sometimes, you know, one asset manager talks about ESG in this term or whatever. You have a regulator talking about another ESG criteria. How do you cope with these uncertainties?
Yeah, we are at the beginning of a journey. Although ESG is not new, but we're still at the beginning of the journey. And regulators have to continue to force regulations to push the economy to make sure that the economy adhere to the new regulations. And for us as investors or as managers, we love that. We actually are really forcing on those discussions with the regulators. That's really something that is important. The second thing that is important is that making sure as well as the company can know about that and basically assess their business model accordingly. And companies are highly welcoming us to talk to them, to explain what we found out about their business model, what they do, right? But it is still work in progress, and therefore, for every investors, they have to understand that we're just on a path. And it's important to understand that because you might not get today exactly the result that you want, but actually it's investing in the companies that will make the effort to change and impact positively the planet. And that's what you want to do. And that's the whole debate about investing or divesting, right? Either you decide not to invest, but sometimes that will take decades before something happens. So you rather try to invest and influence the company so that the company will be forced to change at some stage.
So, thank you very much, Pascal, Mischler.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting conversation. Thank you for watching. This was Capsule, special series on ESG. Stay tuned.